Hi everyone, and welcome to the Fake Love and Flying Monkeys podcast. My name's Nova Gibson and I am your host. My area of expertise is in supporting victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse and other toxic relationships. I'm the principal counsellor at Brighter Outlook Narcissistic Abuse Counselling Service, and I'm also the author of Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about everything from the initial pink cloud you find yourself on at the start through to the horrific discard and the powerful trauma bond that keeps you hooked. So take your imaginary seat on the roller coaster that is narcissistic abuse, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about 5 ways the narcissist engages in blame shifting. Now, every narcissist blame shifts. They have to make someone else responsible for whatever they've done. If you are trying to make them accountable for some way they have hurt you, or for something that is annoying you or frustrating you, then all they hear is that you're trying to criticize them. And of course, when the narcissist perceives criticism, that is like throwing a bucket of water over them, throwing acid in their face, because it wounds their ego. Their whole life is spent trying to play the part of this amazing person who can do no wrong. That false mask that we call it has a massive sense of entitlement, and of course has this grandiose view of themselves, and this is who they are. This is now their personality, and they put so much energy over their lifetime into hiding that weak, wounded, vulnerable true self that they will fight to the death to hide. So if you're criticizing them, then to them, you're exposing a flaw. In other words, you're exposing their true self to them and perhaps to other people. So to avoid that wound and the pain of that wound that comes with being less than, when they perceive criticism from you, then they are going to do everything in their power to shift the blame. They are not going to take responsibility for whatever it is you're trying to make them responsible for. And it's going to fall back on your shoulders in the most confusing way, because they will do it in such a way that you just can't see how they can be so adamant in saying that they are innocent in something that perhaps you have black and white evidence for, or how they can shift the blame on to you when you haven't done anything, and they are the one that is guilty of whatever it is you're trying to discuss with them. How does it feel when you've got direct evidence, or you're just trying to have a discussion with them and express your feelings about something that's going on in the relationship that really should just take 2 people sitting down and having a conversation, which should be win-win. Even if you don't agree, it should be win-win in that each person feels that at least they've been heard and that the other person has understood what they're trying to say. How frustrating is it when somehow they manage to turn the conversation around into something that you did wrong. Now, the narcissist is so skilled in this. And the first example of how they engage in blame shifting is by bringing up something that you may have done that happened a year ago, 2 years ago, even 10 years ago, that they want to now have as the topic of the discussion rather than what you want to discuss. So, for example, you may be trying to tell them that you're sick of them putting all of their dirty clothes over the floor. Let's just say you're in an intimate relationship with the narcissist and they just throw all of their dirty clothes everywhere, and they know it annoys you because you've told them many times, and of course because you're the one who ends up picking them up. And you're simply trying to have a discussion around how they can respect you by maybe, putting their dirty clothes in the basket. Instead of simply saying, yep, my bad, okay, yep, I'll fix that up. Even, if they've got a bad memory and they occasionally forget. Instead of just taking accountability for something that is very obviously a behavior that they have engaged in, they will turn the conversation around onto something that you did in the past that makes you somehow into a hypocrite for trying to discuss this very appropriate thing that you just want to see them stop doing, so that you feel understood, heard, and of course, so you don't have to pick up their dirty clothes anymore. So, for example, you're trying to tell them that it would really help you if they did this and pick their clothes up, put them in the basket, and they say something to you like, how can you sit there and have a go at me about dirty clothes on the floor when 2 years ago I had to put petrol in the car on my way to work and I was late for work because you left the car low on fuel? Remember that? When it happened 2 years ago, and you're actually having a go at me when you're no better yourself. So very skillfully or manipulatively, they have shifted the discussion topic around onto what you did wrong, and you end up debating that topic instead. Because, of course, this happened 2 years ago, and perhaps there was a really good reason that you left the car low on fuel. It's really irrelevant what you did wrong, because the goal is not to get any kind of accountability from you, because you really did do something that was totally unacceptable in the relationship. The goal is to get you to start arguing about that topic instead. And arguing is exactly what you do. You start jading with them, justifying, arguing, defending, and explaining. And the unfairness of it all, and why are they bringing this up now? And all of a sudden, they're not talking to you because you're a hypocrite and you're trying to say that they have flaws when you're no better yourself. So that's a classic way that the narcissist blame shifts. They make you out to be the villain for some perceived indiscretion, that there was no intent, that there was no malicious behavior going on. It really was perhaps one or two times that you just forgot or you did have a very good reason. But they know this. The goal is to get you to react and, of course, to remain unaccountable. And this leads us on to number 2 example. When the narcissist tries to make out that you forgetting about something innocently is the same as their pathological lying. Now, the example that I use in my book, Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse, that many of you will remember who've read the book, you will remember Sophie and how she went out shopping one day and she told Justin, her abuser, that she was going shopping at Kmart. Now, someone had seen Sophie out shopping at Target, and they had said something to Justin along the lines of, I saw Sophie today, just an innocent acknowledgement. And Sophie tried to make Justin accountable for some hideous lying, a betrayal. And when she raised this issue with him, he said to her, "How can you have a go at me when you lied to me? You told me you were going shopping at Kmart, and someone told me that you were seen shopping at Target. How can you call me a liar when you're no better yourself?" The other example I use in the book is around a victim, perhaps staying up late watching a movie one night, and they fall asleep on the couch after telling their partner, their narcissistic partner, that they would come to bed as soon as the movie finished. And at a later time, they were trying to make their abuser accountable once again for some hideous lie or betrayal that they had caught them out on. And their abuser blame shifted them by accusing them of lying and flipping that conversation around. They said, "Well, how can you have a go at me when you told me you were coming to bed and you stayed on that couch all night? You are a hypocrite." And once again, that example shows how the narcissist can shift the blame onto you so that they remain unaccountable, but also so that your innocent little indiscretions, if you could call it that, falling asleep on the couch really is not an indiscretion. It was just something that happened that you didn't plan and is nothing that should be the basis of conflict. But they managed to get the victim to feel guilty and to feel like a hypocrite, because the reality is, in both those situations, they did tell the narcissist that they were shopping or going shopping in one particular place and they went to another place. When the victim told their abuser they would be in bed at a certain time and they did not follow through with what they said, then they actually did tell their abuser that something they said was not true. Now, to someone who hasn't been victimized or abused by a narcissist and had their ability to trust their instincts eroded away over time, they might look at those two examples and go, "Come on, are you serious? Surely you didn't buy into that. How can there be any comparison between those things?" But you've got to remember the gaslighting that has occurred over time and the way the narcissist has manipulated you into taking credence in what they say and getting you to not trust what you're seeing and what you're believing. And they've also conditioned you, educated you around reacting and defending yourself, which to someone who hadn't experienced that sort of ongoing insidious abuse, perhaps would not have even qualified their comparison with any type of response because it was just so ridiculous. But the narcissist has spent their entire lives perfecting the art of manipulation, and blame shifting is one of their skills, and they are able to make their victims see some kind of equivalency in an innocent change of heart and their pathological lying. So if this has happened to you, and I'm sure that it has with whatever relationship you are in, whether it was a narcissistic parent, a colleague, or an intimate partner, you would have felt crazy at those times or shortly after, when you're going over those situations in your mind around how the narcissist could possibly see that those two things that they were comparing were at all the same. But they do get their victims to justify their behavior because of the coercive control and the ongoing insidious nature of the abuse. And of course, because the victim is walking on eggshells all the time, thinking that they've done something wrong, and without even knowing it, hypervigilant to danger. In other words, you're ready at the drop of a hat to defend yourself. Now, a reason that the narcissist is able to get you, the victim, to actually sit there and justify yourself and explain to them, or try to explain to them, how these two things, where you've forgotten something and their pathological lying, are totally different situations. They're apples and oranges. But the reason they are able to do that is, or one of the reasons, is because of the punishments. And this falls into the coercive control. And you fear the punishment. If you were to sit there and argue back with them and completely dispute and eventually not back down in saying to them that, yes, maybe I did lie, and yes, I guess, that I did say something to you that wasn't exactly truthful. Unless you come to that stage where sometimes not only do they avoid accountability, but they have you apologizing for your, in inverted commas, lies. The punishment is just too much to bear. It's exhausting, and having to deal with the silent treatment or the slamming of doors and all of those passive aggressive punishments that come with denying them of their truth or of their gaslighting. It's just too much. And much of the time when they do shift the blame in those ridiculous circumstances, victims end up either as I said before, apologizing themselves, trying to rationalize for a very short period of time because they just give up. And it also conditions you to not approach them again in the future, to try and make them accountable for anything, because subconsciously you know that they will somehow flip it. And those discussions where you're trying to defend your actions will be just too frustrating. You will go round in circles and you will be the one that comes out feeling crazy and regretting that you approached them in the first place. Number 3 example is when the narcissist says something along the lines of, well, you made me do it. It's your fault. I stay out late every night and I never want to come home. And when I'm here, I just want to play my games or just stay out in the shed to avoid you because you're angry all the time. You've never got anything nice to say to me. So here the narcissist is perhaps giving you the silent treatment. They're just being so disrespectful. They are ignoring you. They're acting like they don't see or hear you, and nothing you have to say is important. They never want to be with you or to talk to you when they get home. They're spending their entire day at home trying to avoid you, and it's all your fault. So what they're doing is they're making you feel bad. They're making you search for reasons around what you did wrong, when in actual fact, when you're with a narcissist, you haven't done anything wrong. Most probably you did get angry, or you did get frustrated, or maybe if it's an intimate partner, you didn't want to snuggle up to them in bed because they're so nasty and so rude to you. Maybe you did do those things which were totally appropriate given the covert, passive, aggressive abuse and just the way they make you feel. So yes, you may have done those things. You may have got angry at them or frustrated or just didn't want to be with them because they had been so rude and horrible to you and made you feel just absolutely worthless. Maybe you did do those things, but your behaviors were appropriate given the abusive behaviors of the narcissist. But now the narcissist is using their abusive, cold and passive aggressive behaviors and saying that those behaviors are the reaction to your abuse. So in essence, what they're kind of saying is, well, I abuse you, but now you hate me. So that makes me angry, and now I'm the victim because you're angry because I abused you, if that makes sense. They're able to flip the blame onto you because you were angry for their very abusive behaviors, but now you are the abuser because you reacted appropriately to those abusive behaviors. And how confusing is this when you're trying to work out what they mean and you're trying to think back at what you did, and maybe you think, yeah, I did yell that day, and yeah, I haven't really wanted to cuddle up to them in bed, and the gaslighting that has gone on consistently over time actually has you analyzing your reactions to their abuse, and once again, giving the narcissist blame shifting, gaslighting strategies some credence because you did yell, and maybe they're right to avoid you. This is manipulation 101, and this is a classic way the narcissist engages in blame shifting by using your reactions, your appropriate reactions to their abuse, as the reason that they engaged in those behaviors. It's all your fault. And if you weren't angry in the first place, then they wouldn't avoid you. They wouldn't feel the need to come home late, when really it was because they did come home late, because they were totally ignoring you and acting like you didn't exist, that you engaged in those very, very appropriate behaviors and responses. Number 4 example is when, once again, you're trying to make them accountable for something that they have done to hurt you, or that some behavior that's frustrating you, and they make you out to be a bully, someone who is just so without empathy because you're not thinking of them when you're doing this. In other words, they guilt trip you and they play the victim and make you out to be the bully for not being grateful for what they do give you. Now, a classic example of this would be when the narcissistic parent says to their child, "But I did all of this for you. I put food on the table, and I went without, and I could have been doing this and this with my life, but I devoted my life to you. And now you're trying to make me accountable because I'm destroying your relationship. How ungrateful are you? I can't believe you're doing this." This is classic narcissistic blame shifting by the toxic parent when they're trying to avoid accountability, because that's what blame shifting is all about. You're trying to talk to them about what has hurt you. Perhaps you're trying to improve the relationship by bringing everything out onto the table because you want to have a better relationship with them. And you're hoping, just for that little bit of accountability, and you're prepared to forgive them. But instead of any accountability, you get these little breadcrumbs thrown at you of what you should just take for granted, but they did feed you. Once again, this is going to confuse you and make you feel guilty and ungrateful because they've spent their whole life manufacturing that guilt and obligation in you. You do start to feel that guilt. So they are able to successfully flip the blame onto you for being ungrateful and without empathy, because you're just looking at these things which they're denying anyway, and you're not looking at the big picture of everything that they've done for you. Using those same principles, a husband or a narcissistic wife may say something to you when perhaps you're asking for a little extra money. You're wanting money to buy the kids' school uniforms, or you're just wanting a little bit of extra money for groceries because the budget they have you on is just not enough. And instead of just being able to have a reasonable discussion with your partner, well, you shouldn't be in this place in the first place where you're on this confusing shoestring budget when they're making all of this money that you're not allowed to know exactly how much that is, but you can see them buying extravagant things, buying houses and business perhaps, but they've got you on this shoestring budget and you ask them for a little extra. And the narcissistic husband or wife might say something to you like, I can't believe that you would think I would deprive you of any extra if I had it. Do you think I'm lying to you? Are you accusing me of lying about where the money's going? Look at the roof you have over your head. Look at the car you drive. Your next door neighbor doesn't drive as nice a car as you. And the victim, once again, with their inability to trust their instincts, puts some validity into what they're saying. And the fact that they are accusing their partner essentially of lying if they bring up the fact, the very obvious fact that their abuser is putting all of this money into these other unnecessary items, and yet for things like school uniforms for the children or just a little bit extra for the groceries, you're being denied, you're being deprived. And not only that, you're being accused of calling them a liar, and in actual fact, that's how it seems to the victim a lot of the time, because the narcissist has conditioned you not to challenge them. If you challenge them, you know there's a punishment coming up. And if you are asking for extra money, then you are essentially calling them a liar. So how crazy making is this for you as the victim when you can see that there is all of this money? You're not silly. You can see that this money is going into all of these extra things that you have no say over. You don't know where the money's coming from because you don't know how much your partner earns. And they are implying that the fault is with you, and they are able to successfully shift the blame onto you for being ungrateful instead of grateful for what you do have. In other words, they treat you like a child. They demean you, and they think that you pointing out those discrepancies, if you dare to, is the equivalent of telling them that they're a lie. In other words, you criticized them. So they flip it onto you so that you then become the villain. You absorb the blame for asking for a little extra money for groceries. By the same token, a narcissistic partner will shift the blame onto their victim if perhaps you do say something to them when they are coming home late, perhaps, or they don't come home for an important event that you've got planned and your hopes are dashed, your special night is ruined. And what do? You've been telling them about this event for ages because you know what you will experience if you don't keep reminding them about it, even though you get accused of nagging. So you continue to just try and subtly drop little hints here and there to remind them of this very important event that is coming up. And on the night, they walk in the door 3 hours late and the event's over. You've missed it. And you approach them, you're distraught, you're angry, and you challenge them about being so disrespectful, so unfeeling, so uncaring about what's important to you, which they were. That is 100% fact, and it will always be intentional, guys. They remembered, and this is one of those special occasions that they love to ruin. But with regards to blame shifting, here you are, appropriately upset, distressed, because you reminded them over and over again, even though you knew that you would be called a nag. You were wanting to really do everything in your power to make them acknowledge how important this event was to you. But they've come home 3 hours late, and instead of doing what a normal partner should do, which would be to say something along the lines of, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I'll make it up to you." Because if it was a normal person, it would be an innocent mistake. It wouldn't be intentional. So they would say something like that. But a narcissist will flip the blame onto you. "Oh my goodness, I had to work back late to put a roof over your head. Do you like that car you drive around in? Who do you think pays for that? I had to put in a few hours extra at the office and I work hard and all you ever do is have a go at me." So here they are again, shifting the blame on to you when you had every right to approach them and had every right to be upset because they forgot. They didn't forget. They intentionally created this situation where you would be distressed, and then they could call you ungrateful for what they did do in your life, which normally are things that, once again, you should just take for granted in a relationship. Number 5, blame shifting technique used classically, textbook, by the narcissist, is a gaslighting phrase they use, which I'm sure you would have all been on the other end of, which is, "You're just overreacting. You're thinking too much into this. You're oversensitive," those types of statements. So how is this blame shifting? Blame shifting is about deflection. It's about getting you to think about something else, anything else other than what you're trying to make them accountable for. And if they can get your pain and your reactions along the way, then that's just an added bonus. It's normally also the goal. So when they are saying those things to you, you're just overreacting. It's always in response to something that you are absolutely not overreacting to. You are giving a very appropriate, distressed, angry, frustrated response to whatever they've said or whatever they've done. So to explain this, let's look at cheating. All narcissistic partners cheat. It's what they do, whether they're sleeping with someone else or they're having an emotional affair with someone else or they're flirting, they're cheating, okay? They're engaging in a behavior that they know is inappropriate and, of course, would make you feel betrayed. So all narcissists cheat, but you are suspicious. You have got all of this circumstantial evidence. You haven't caught them out quite yet, but there's all this circumstantial evidence. And when you brought it up to them, you've been made out to feel crazy. So you give up because there is just no point. They minimize your feelings and they act like you are oversensitive and that this would not be something that any of their ex-partners had done, and it's only you that has a problem with whatever they're doing with these cheating, circumstantial examples. So let's just say that they've told you that you're crazy about the fact that you're suspicious because their secretary has been calling them in the middle of the night, because, of course, all secretaries call their boss at midnight, you know, when they have a query, right? So the secretary has periodically been calling your narcissistic partner in the middle of the night, and they keep saying to you, look, it's work related, okay? Stop being so oversensitive. This is a work problem. And of course, your very appropriate reactions are downplayed. Now, couple the fact that not only has the secretary been calling at midnight or very appropriate or inappropriate hours, I should say, but every time she or he calls, your narcissistic partner jumps out of bed and has to go downstairs or out of earshot from you so that they can take this call. And if you present them with your observations, which would be, if it's only nothing, why do you have to leave the room? You know, what is so private about this conversation? You know, you're not working for NASA. This is a shopping management role and employee. What is so private that she has to call you at midnight and you have to jump out of bed and go downstairs? Of course, that would be ridiculous. And if you were to say that, then your reactions, what you say is very appropriate. But not only does the narcissist deny you your reality, which is they are taking a phone call from their secretary who is an employee at a shopping mall at midnight, and they're going outside for an hour to take the call. That's the reality. But not only will they deny that by saying something like, oh my goodness, I was talking about confidential stuff and absolutely boring stuff that you wouldn't be interested in, but it's about privacy and confidentiality. And I can't be talking about those things in front of you, or my employees would not respect me. So they've gaslighted you out of your reality by letting you know that this is something that's totally okay and that other people wouldn't have a problem with. But then they say something like, and I was actually getting out of bed and going outside, so I didn't wake you up and I didn't disturb you. Of course. Yeah, right. They want you to believe that they were actually being selfless when they were doing that. This is textbook. Now, that's just one example that I hear a lot, believe it or not, when someone, the narcissist, is grooming, clearly will call all the time, and you as the victim will get uncomfortable with this. They'll seem a little bit too familiar with this person, and then they start ringing at ridiculous hours. And if you say something, it's lose-lose, because they will shift the blame onto you. You are overreacting. This is work. I am doing the right thing. And not only that, I actually had your best interests at heart because I wanted you to get a good night's sleep. And it was better that I took the conversation downstairs. Blame shifting is about avoiding responsibility and deflecting onto something other than what you would like to talk about. And it is crazy making for victims, but they get so good at getting you to actually put credence into what they are saying. And this has nothing to do, once again, with weakness or lack of intelligence. And it's got to do with that erosion away of the trust you have for yourself, not to mention the subconscious desire to avoid the punishment that would come if the narcissist perceived criticism from you, if you don't believe their lies. The problem is with you, not with the fact that they lied, but that you're not believing their lies. When the narcissist is engaging in the art or the manipulative skill of blame shifting, they are using you as a scapegoat. You become the vessel for anything that could be perceived as flawed in them. They cannot, will not take responsibility. So they've got to flip the blame around. And if you are trying to resolve some kind of conflict, they will make the conflict 1,000-fold by, instead of discussing whatever it is you have to say, making the topic of the discussion about something you've done wrong or about the argument itself. The problem or the issue becomes not what you were trying to very appropriately discuss with them. The problem becomes the fact that you're arguing and that you're always wanting to start conflict. They will find any way to shift the blame on to you. There is always a power imbalance when you are in a relationship with the narcissist. The narcissist destroys your power and takes away any kind of agency that you have. So with that power imbalance comes weaknesses that they become aware of, vulnerabilities in you that they can hone in on. They become the chinks in your armor that they use against you when they are blame shifting. For example, the issue of you having a go at them because they were maybe receiving phone calls from someone at work. Maybe you are feeling, a little guilty because they've made you feel that way about staying home with the children and you're not working outside the home. They've really built on those guilty feelings of yours, even though you've got nothing to feel guilty about, so that when something like that happens, someone calls at an inappropriate time, they can hone in on that guilt that they have built up in you to use against you by saying that, you're overreacting and you're being ridiculous because this is my job, and sometimes that entails taking calls outside of work hours. So they successfully use the chinks in your armor that they have created so that you do absorb that blame. And once again, the power imbalance that they have created enables them to do this. Now, these are just some of the ways the narcissist engages in blame shifting. And in future episodes, I will definitely be talking about quite a few more that you will no doubt have experienced. But if this is what you remember when you were having the blame flipped on to you, when you could see nothing that you had done wrong, but you ended up defending whatever the narcissist had brought up, instead of being able to get your point across and have any kind of acknowledgement from the narcissist or the person you now know is a narcissist, you will know now that they were blame shifting and you had been conditioned over time to avoid the discussion around something that they could feel or perceive criticism from. And the problem was not, is never with you. And it's just a textbook skill the narcissist uses so that they can forever maintain that perfect image they have of themselves. And of course, use you as the dumping ground for everything they may associate with that weak, true self. And that brings us to the end of another Fake Love and Flying Monkeys episode. Today's episode was about blame shifting, and we talked about 5 classic strategies the narcissist uses to avoid accountability and to make you absorb the very blame appropriately you were trying to place on them for their abuse. Now, before I go on, I just want to remind you of my very exciting competition. In the next 4 weeks, I am giving away 2 signed copies of my best-selling book, Fake Love. And it is so easy to be in the running. All you have to do is to rate this podcast and comment in the reviews, whatever you want to say, just some little comment about how you feel about these episodes and if they're validating for you. And that's it. and you will be in the running to win a signed copy of Fake Love, no matter where you are in the world. You just have to rate this podcast, share if you can, and just write me some little review, however you're feeling, in the comments. That's it. Now, for those of you who don't like hard copies or the paperback, and if you would prefer an audio book or a Kindle, an ebook, then that's what you shall have. It depends on you. 2 lucky winners will be announced in 4 weeks' time. So yes, get busy subscribing, guys. I look forward to reading your comments. Until next episode, remember we're having 5 episodes a week now. Till then, remember, you are worthy of love, and you are certainly worthy of a whole lot more than a lifetime of fake love and flying monkeys.